All right, welcome everyone. We're gonna get started, so please find your seat. Right now, I wanted to just quickly introduce the members of SAG-AFTRA's Asian American Committee.
Good afternoon. Welcome to C3 2017. My name is Ren Hanami. I'm the National Chairman of the SAG-AFTRA Asian Pacific American Media Committee. This is Hayden Lee. He is the chairman of our workshop subcommittee. Well, I wanted you to know that APAM's mission is to create awareness in order to increase employment opportunities as well as fair and accurate portrayals of Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders in the entertainment and news media.
And we are thrilled to be here today to sponsor LA Asian Pacific Film Festival and C3. So can you believe it's been 15 years since the film Better Luck Tomorrow came out? Wow. So the purpose of this panel today is to reflect on the last 15 years and to see what's changed in the APIA community, in the entertainment industry, and also to see where we're headed. It will also give us a chance to see how this film has impacted the lives and careers of those involved with it. So without further ado, welcome, and let's start our panel, Better Luck Tomorrow, a retrospective. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm David Magdo, one of the co-directors for the Los Angeles Asian Pacific Film Festival. Thank you for coming today and joining us on this great afternoon when you could be outside, but you're going to be here listening to these great people with some great stories from 15 years ago to like now. I want to thank Visual Communications. I want to thank Janum for housing us again here. And I want to thank you for being here and being part of this and part of this community. 15 years ago, I was lucky enough to be in Sundance and to be part of the team that helped bring this film, Better Luck Tomorrow, to light. And at that moment, about 15 years ago, we were thinking about that. What was that like in 2002, going up to Sundance, which was mostly, very much a Caucasian place. And here we had a film that had all Asian American cast and written and directed by an Asian American filmmaker. And it was kind of like an accomplishment for those of us who had been going to Sundance for a while. So we all kind of were really excited, but we weren't really sure what that was going to be. And the whole, that whole backstory with, Roger Ebert, coming to really defend the film and defend the filmmakers and the actors, there was like really a great moment. And as well as I think for a lot of us in Asian American history and Asian American cinema, just watching and waiting is when is our story going to be told by us? And it was an interesting time because you look back 15 years, you're like, where were we? And it was like, I think we were at a point where a lot of people were saying, I want to see my story. And then lo and behold, we have these writers and this director come up and, comes up with Better Luck Tomorrow. So it was really exciting. It was a moment in history. And I think, having you guys here and having this panel and everybody that's going to be up here on the stage is really incredible. So we're going to get the panel started. And I think we have a clip, right? We're going to show a clip.
So at the third screening at the library, this guy gets up. He praises us about the filmmaking and the performances, and then...
Why would you, with the talent up there and yourself, make a film that's so empty and immoral for Asian Americans?
I think a lot of times in films, there's not enough discourse, and I think this was made for that, and it felt good to actually get that in return.
This guy feels like he has the right to tell us how we are supposed to exist in media. And then Roger Ebert gets up.
What I find very offensive and condescending about your statement is nobody would say to a bunch of white filmmakers, how could you do this to your people? This film has the right to be about these people, and Asian American characters have the right to be whoever the hell they want to be. They do not have to represent their people.
It's a historical day. I felt very lucky to be a part of that day. And I think a lot of people in the audience felt the same way.
Wow, that was really powerful. And it's funny because we look back at that time and we got that clip out to everybody that was, this was like pre-YouTube. So we were up all night putting things on VHS tape and putting it in all the press mailboxes at Sundance. And then it went out. So and back then, it was like, that's how it went viral. But the cool thing was across the nation that whole year, we went and toured with this film and played different film festivals, and we got to meet a lot of young people, a lot of aspiring writers who wanted to write, a lot of people who wanted to make film. and you could feel that energy back then. So it was really a moment in time. It was a moment in not only Asian American cinema history, but also I think in American cinema, because we now know what has happened for a lot of the people who were involved with the film. So with that, we're going to present the SAG-AFTRA Better Luck Tomorrow, a retrospective. Let me introduce our moderator. She is a film reporter with the LA Times. Please give it up for Jen Yamato.
I was unclear on how I'm supposed to come in. And we have Justin Lin, director, writer, producer, Better Luck Tomorrow. With his cast, Sung Kang, Roger Fan, Parry Shen, and Karin and Cheung, and Aaron Takahashi. You guys want to come?
Enough seats? Okay. You okay?
I'm good, guys. All right. So I don't know how many of you were with us at the 15th anniversary screening that we had the other night at the Egyptian. Really, really cool to see this film, the Sundance cut on 35 millimeter on the big screen for the first time shown since Sundance 2002. And today we're going to get a lot deeper into the making of Better Luck Tomorrow and its impact that it had, not only on the indie film scene, but on the Asian American community in the arts, the legacy that it still really has today. So I'd like to start asking Justin, take us back to 2001, or before you made the movie, where this idea germinated in your head, what themes you were trying to explore, and who were you? Who was Justin Lin back then?
It's interesting that we're here at the museum. I was working here. And when the building opened, it used to only be the other building. And I was working out of a garage at Bob Nakamura's house. And when they opened this, I remember when we installed this 9-screen, it was the biggest deal. It was like a big deal, it had 9 screens. And I was just working at the Media Arts Center. And I had done Chopping for Fangs with Quentin in '97, and I was in grad school, so I was doing a lot of teaching, TAing, and I was working here. And at the same time, I was just kind of saving up as much money as I could and trying to figure out what to do with my life, And the Shopping for Fangs experience, through that, I felt like I had one in me. I wasn't satisfied, and I wanted to just see if I can make a film where, at the end of the day, no excuses. If it makes it great, if it's not great. And that led to this idea of, okay, well, 10 credit cards, because the great thing about UCLA is that it's there to hone your craft and point of view, but I had no connection to anybody in the industry, and and I was searching for stories, and I had 3 ideas I was playing with, and none of them they felt right. I feel like sometimes when there's agendas to it, like trying to prove yourself, it's not worth it. And Ernesto came to me, and I think we both grew up in Orange County, and then there was this incident that happened, and we started talking about it, and because we were, I think Ernie was much more, I think he lived in Tustin, and he was much more middle upper class. I grew up in Buena Park, which is much more working class, and so we had really interesting discussions about identity, and about how when we were growing up, it was, you go to college, you talk about searching for identity. And so it was very much more theoretical and this exploration of identity that led us to say, well, let's try to do this. And so I remember we were working, Ernie was in Columbia, New York, I was working here, Fabe was working at New Line, and we would write, and it wasn't really going anywhere. And finally, I was accruing so many vacation days here, they forced me to take a vacation. So I had heard that, they pump air into rooms in Vegas, hotel rooms. And I thought, oh, I should just go there and I can just kind of work and not go to sleep. So I took 4 days, I drove out by myself. I locked myself in downtown, this place called Fitzgerald. And that was, most of the script was written in those 4 days. And then when I came back, I faxed it to Ernie. and to Fabe, and that's when everything kind of got going. And that was 2000, the whole writing process. And then 2001, when we felt like we were ready, we couldn't get any financing, but I felt like that we could be going for 5 years trying to find financing. So we just decided we were going to shoot. Was it March 2001, February 2001? Somehow that was the date. And Julie, who I was working with here, she was producing it. And we just decided that was a drop date, and we were just going to go no matter what. And called my friends, and everyone quit their jobs and flew out here, and we made the movie.
So guys, I'd like to go down the line and everybody tell us what your first reaction was to the script, to these characters, and what it was that made you need to be a part of a project like this, 10 credit cards or no.
When I first read the script, it was so foreign. You know, the idea of having Asian American male characters all on screen together. It was hard to digest, but then when I sat down with Justin, you know, he put a lot of stuff into sports basketball analogies. And, you know, the idea of us winning together, collaborating together, going on a journey together, you know, helping each other on our week, if we have a weak left side, you know, those things. I was like, wow, you know, I can dig that, and I would love to go and, you know, take a chance and go to the unknown together with this guy. So, you know, it had a lot to do with just, you know, first, I think the kind of discipline and focus that Justin had on what he was trying to make, and that kind of, you know, set the bar, but that was all foreign. It wasn't like I looked at it and I could compare it to a lot of other Asian American scripts with, you know, three-dimensional characters. I looked at all the characters, and each of them, I'm sure there's a bit of us in each of these characters, you know, and it was kind of cool to see. And then the rest of it was just, you know, believing in a coach, believing in a guy with a vision, and then going on this unknown journey together. So, and then you crew up with all these other, you know, guys with similar passion, and it becomes a family. So, yeah.
Roger?
Yeah, it just came at an interesting time. I was working in Hollywood about 10 years, backpacked through Australia, contemplating maybe going and becoming a doctor instead of an actor. And when I got back, it was literally, I just got off the plane, I heard about this Better Luck Tomorrow thing, and luckily they were willing to see me, even though I came in, I guess, a little bit on the later side. It's just unusual. You look at the script and you open it up, and usually when I look at a script, it's like you dig through it, page after page, you can't find, and then you find gangster number 3. You have your 2 lines, and then after that, bullet in the head, or you're dead, you know? So it was kind of cool to see a script. I mean, it's like every other page you were on it. So that was just amazing, and the script I thought was really good. I think also what made the big difference was just the energy around it. Justin was very confident, but very approachable, and his production team was, you know, we weren't in a studio office like in Sony or Paramount, but everything was operating similar to that. And for some odd reason, everyone really liked each other. So I was like, all right, I'll jump on board.
I was in a very similar situation with Roger. I'd been acting about like 6 years prior to getting the script, trying to make decisions like, you know, where is this career going anywhere? Kind of doing the same standard parts in Hollywood, and it was we were always like competing against each other, you know, because it's always one Asian person on in a project, and if they had like 2 Asian people, they'd be like, no, wait, people might get confused and may think that they're related or they know each other, and it just was always that one person. So I always, you know, between like us guys, you know, the part would go to like John or Jason or Roger or Sung, and it's like, oh, okay, I never get to work with these guys. But then when I got the script, I remember having my my girlfriend, my wife now, we'd be like reading through. I'd be like reading through the whole entire script, and we'd be up like the whole night. We read it all in one sitting, and like because we're just so riveted by it. And I'm like, yeah, I'm auditioning for this thing. And she had been with me through my whole career, so she kind of understood that what a rarity having something like this was. And so I remember when the project was coming together and hearing people who were attached to it, just knowing Roger, and I was like, oh, Roger just been cast for Daric. I'm like, oh God, that's so perfect. And then John for Steve, and then Jason for Virgil. I was like, oh my gosh, I want to be a part of this thing. I was like, because I think I was like one of the last ones cast. So yeah, it was amazing to sort of because I would be, you know, even if I was an outsider, you know, be such a big fan of this project. So to actually be part of it is you know, it's a huge blessing.
I actually had a very different experience because I was very lucky to have this as one of the first features I auditioned for. So my perspective of the script, I think these guys have gone through so much, and I love the opportunity that's open to them, but my perspective is just that it was a damn good script, you know, because I haven't had all that, like, me reading it, I don't have what they're feeling like. There's so much more to this character and everything. I saw all these rich characters, but it was just a goddamn good script that I hate to admit this, but I have a little bit of reading problem. It's really hard for me to sit down and read a script. Like a little bit dyslexic, so I have a hard time, like I read the same pages over and over again. And it's the first script that I sat and I was able to read completely through, and I not just read it once, I read it twice because the writing was that good. And then on another level, like these guys are saying, it's like the dimensions, the multi-dimensions, which I got to appreciate after I started auditioning more, that there really isn't that many characters out there that are written for Asian American actors, or just characters that are just, it's more, there's just different dimensions, and it's not just like they're saying like busboy or a waiter or somebody that's gonna deliver your food or get shot in the next second, you know. Sorry, is my kid out there? I mean, S-H-O-T in the next second. Uh-oh, can your kid spell? Uh-oh, shoot.
Yes, they go to Kumon.
Uh-oh. Anyways, it was a good script. Okay, next.
I feel like I'm going to be saying the exact same thing that everybody else did. My acting career was just starting, and so I hadn't gotten too many scripts, but I saw this one and I was attracted to it because the lead characters were all Asian, and they were three-dimensional, and they had flaws, and they weren't the model minority, and that was really attractive to me. And the character that spoke out to me the most was Ben, which I auditioned for and did not get, obviously. But what I ended up getting was probably the most stereotypical role, which was Asian guy with a camera taking photos. That's it.
But you worked that camera. Yeah, you did.
I worked it.
So let's move on to the making of it. When you got your 10 credit cards maxed out and you decided to just start, there's some incredible footage online from the behind the scenes of the time, 16 years ago, of watching you guys make this movie. And like, Roger, you're there solving like a problem of how to get a lowrider up onto a ramp. And you're there on your days off. And it really does have this familial vibe. What was the set like, and like what were your favorite memories of that time?
You know, I think the one thing that a lot of things I learned on shopping for Fangs, I felt like I wanted to put into practice for Better Luck Tomorrow. You know, I knew that, you know, and this is, again, 2001 is very different today. You know, I mean, if you talk about a $250,000 movie, most of that money goes into buying film, going to developing film, negative cutting. And so, like, at the end of the day, it was like so little money, you know. But I think when I got together with Julie and Ernie and Fabe to start, I did feel like, well, there's two things. Like, either you can show up and get paid and it's a job, or you show up because you want to do something, you know. And we were very conscious to make that the energy, you know. So I remember, even on auditions, first everybody had to come multiple times, but the first audition that came in, there was no script. It was an improv. Like, I wanted to do improv just to see how everybody would react. And there were like walkouts. People would cuss us out and just walk out and big time us and stuff. But I felt like, okay, that's cool because you don't want to do this, we really want to do something special, and that was our criteria, was that there is no money, that's not going to be the currency, it's going to be the passion, and it really, goes beyond, like, even going the Fast franchise and all the other movies, that has become like the rule for me, is that, when making the big budget movies, it's great, we get compensated very well, but like, let's show up every day in the morning, and let's challenge each other, and let's have a great time. And that all came from Better Luck Tomorrow. That was the exercise that we set out to do.
I'd love to hear from all of the actors about what your favorite part of your character is, and has that maybe changed over the years? They're all such multidimensional characters. Karin, your character is adopted, which I thought was, like, the first time I saw that, I thought that was one of the most interesting choices. But maybe everybody can describe the things that you enjoyed the most putting into your character.
Well, I guess I'll start with I think my favorite part of her is that Stephanie's such a strong woman, female character, and it's not about, like, she's not a damsel in distress at any point, she's confident, yet she's got a gentleness about her. There's, she's just like such a great character to play. She's kind of badass a little bit, She's kind of badass. It's very different.
I latched onto the organization of Ben. Just naturally, I'm a pretty organized person, so just like the statistics of him, like keeping track of his percentage and shooting like that. I mean, all those inserts, I wrote all those things. I still have the notebook, actually, of all the statistics and just saying, and then judging the wind velocity and things like that. I mean, just a couple months ago, I just couldn't figure out my whole USB situation in my computer, so I made a little map to say, okay, on this USB, it's connected to this thing, because I got tired of pulling something out and something else would power down. So I got it with that aspect of Ben, and trying to keep things into control. And sometimes, you can't control things, and then it spirals out of control, which is eventually what happened. But I definitely zoned in onto that aspect of.
And did keeping all those stats help your free throw game during the shooting of this movie?
As much as it did. I mean, now I wish I had, in seeing it in hindsight, that I had a tutor, because it was me. I definitely put in the work. I could get it in. It wouldn't look pretty, but it definitely would get in.
We went on the court, and I tried to teach.
Yes, you
Harry.
did. But only once. I had to, where were you the other weeks?
Oh my God, your form is horrible.
He's terrible. I was better at free throw than him.
Yeah, Karin was there too.
She was.
She was knocking him down.
Yeah, no, I don't play basketball, but I know I had to, for those close-ups, the shots where he had to swish it in, I'm like, I know we don't have a lot of film, so I remember one time we were shooting it, and we were showing, Ben getting frustrated, and he would miss, and then Justin would be like, okay, we got enough of the missing stuff. We need the wides of you getting it in, actually.
And Roger, your favorite thing about Daric?
This is going to be an actor thing. It's going to be very quick. The character of Daric actually isn't someone who I think naturally would have long hair. And so one of my biggest problems with this character was, how do I act this character when I have these long flowing locks? And it was just weird because he should be more of a beach bum, that look. So it actually added to it. It added a weird dimension, but I had to think about it for a couple of days. I showed up with long hair. Justin's like, oh, I like your long hair. I'm like, oh, okay. It's like, how am I going to act this character with long hair? So I know, it's pretty left field stuff. So.
It gives him a very 80s evil jock vibe, though. It's kind of perfect.
Johnny.
James Spader. What's it? Pretty in Pink? Is that what it is? I just dated myself, so.
Han is a fun character to play. I mean, it's fun to be cool, right? I guess it's fun to be sexy and brooding and all of that, and you wonder if it's gonna work. And you look at yourself 15 years later, and you go, "Yeah, it's pretty sexy." Acting's kind of questionable, but sexy is there, So like, it's fun, you know. You look back on it, and then to be able to continue on this journey with Han on, you know, the Fast and Furious franchise and all of that stuff is, you know, an amazing kind of Hollywood story to be able to continue, and inside joke to be able to kind of continue that legacy.
So do you see Han of Better Luck Tomorrow as a spiritual alternate version of Han from the Fast movies?
I don't know. It's a great question, right? What do you think, Justin?
It's a little bit both. I mean, we talked about a continuation, actually. That was something that we played off. I remember us like at that roof in Tokyo, talking about it, the Mexico line and stuff. It was a direct correlation. And for us, I think I wanted to play more literal.
Wait, okay, so the line you're
By the
talking
way,
about
it's not his name is not Han Solo. It's in the Fast Five. I put it in there, but it's supposed to be a fake ID. They were doing the face recognition, so it's actually not his real name. Everyone thinks that's his real name, but that's his fake ID. So I just wanted you to know that.
An AKA, mark it in the canon. So
His real name is Han Jumbum. It's not very sexy, so it's hard to use in a film.
So the Mexico line in Tokyo Drift was inserted to give him a backstory that you could then explore.
No, it was when I got on Tokyo Drift. It was I remember I didn't want to do it. I was in London and like the head of Universal wanted a meeting, and so we went in. I got back and we sat, and I said, no, I don't want to do this. This is, you know, and she's like, why? And I gave her because I didn't want to do it. So I gave her all the reasons why I didn't want to do it. And she listened. She's like, oh, well, just take it. Do whatever you want. You're shooting in 2.5 months. And so it was a great opportunity. So at that point, I took it over, and I'm just writing and stuff. And so Han didn't exist before that, you know, before my draft. So when we did it, I was really thinking of Han. And so when I talked to Sam, I'm like, it's a continuation. Let's keep going with it.
And Aaron.
Hi.
Hey, what's your favorite aspect of your character?
I wasn't really in the film a whole lot. You guys in the audience are probably looking at me and like, who did he play? Who's that guy? Is that Jason Tobin on the end there? I'm not Jason Tobin, but if you have questions for him, I'll be happy to answer them. I loved being on set. Just every day that I was on set, there was this energy that was a feeling that we all knew that we were working towards something that was going to be really, really good at the end. And it was just really cool to be a part of that.
Yeah, Aaron was awesome. I think like his energy there, I remember he was just always there. So whatever you need, Aaron was there to do it. And he'd do anything. You know, and that was like, that really added to kind of the overall feel of the set.
What did it feel like when you got into Sundance? And did it feel like the momentous achievement that it turned out to be?
I'll tell you, I knew Sundance was something you wanted to achieve. I didn't, I remember Julie and I were actually here at the museum. We were looking at the catalog from the year before, and we knew the chances were very slim because it seemed like everything in competition had like a star attached. And so we knew the reality of it. And I remember I was very proud of the film when we were done. And this is, I think, in October 2001. And I set up a screening. I had all the actors. We were at Jerry's Deli, right, in Westwood. And I said, you guys are amazing. You should have a great career off of these roles. And that was one of our big goals. And I said, look, I'm going to set up a screening. That might be the only screening of this film because I don't know if we're going to get into Sundance or not. But bring anybody you think is going to change your life, that could change your life. Casting directors, agents, managers. So we loaded up the screening at PhotoCam. Was it November or October? Or November, I think, right? And it was the worst screening. I mean, people were walking out going, you're an idiot. Why would you put Asian Americans as leads? Agents from UTA, all these people were just bragging on this movie. No, this actually was November because this was like the week before we got into Sundance. So boom, I get into Sundance. I get the call day before Thanksgiving 2001. And it was John Cooper at Sundance, and he said, congratulations, I just want to tell you, it'll be in the trades on Tuesday morning in Variety. Have a good weekend. And I told everybody, and we had a great weekend. Monday morning at 8 a.m., my phone rang. It was John Sloss, and my phone, this is back when phone, answering machines and stuff. I'd go out to lunch and come back, and it'd be full. And people were calling from every studio, every agency. I'm getting courted by, CAA, WME, everybody. And I go in, and these are the same agents now are saying, oh, what a great movie. That's my lesson into Hollywood, is that, when we were, the week before Sundance, we were a joke. A week after we got in Sundance, everybody was trying to sign us. We were offered these ridiculous deals where we're going to sign everybody. And it was just, my head was spinning,
Well, when you were trying to get it financed, true that financiers told you, recommended that you change characters to
all the
Caucasian
time,
characters?
all the time. I mean, I met with this Asian American financier, and he's like, just change the Ben into a white character, and we'll get Macaulay Culkin. I'll get you $2 million. And those are that's just the way people, it's when commerce and art collide, and everybody, when it comes to that, everybody becomes very conservative, become reactive. They just want to do what they think is the right way. And those are tests, along the way. There were many tests. I had an investor, I remember she wanted to invest in the movie, so I went to lunch with her, and she said, I'll invest, but I have to be the lead of this movie. And I said, well, I have to be a good filmmaker, and I have to tell you that you should not waste your money that way. That would not be good for your investment. And you just, just this business, you meet all these crazy people. There's other stories that are nuts. I end up in some some motel room in Alhambra with some dude that might have money. And it's crazy, but it's just what filmmaking is. I think when you're starting off, you believe in something, but everybody is there and they have agendas. And it's up to you to decide how you want to proceed. And there's no right, there's no wrong. And we were very clear that if we had to struggle and it was going to take 10 credit cards with 19% interest, that's what we're going to do.
Enter MC Hammer. I don't know how many people out there know this MC Hammer story, but I love it, and I'm going to make you tell it again. I'm so sorry. It's amazing. MC Hammer is credited with thanks in the film. And I love that after all these people in Hollywood told you you couldn't do it this way, you did. You did do it your own way with the help of Please Hammer, Don't Hurt Him, MC Hammer. What was your pitch to MC Hammer to get the funds that you needed to finish this film?
I was, because I had met him in '98, so that was 3 years, and I was working at the museum. I went there to NAB, and I was checking out the new digital cameras, this VX1000, the Canon had one, and all of a sudden Hammer walks by, and he's like, anybody know, digital video? And I said, oh yeah, I just checked out a couple cameras, so we ended up talking, and he said, well, what do you do? And I said, well, I hope be a filmmaker one day. And he said, oh, great, and he gave me his phone number. So I was just happy, and I had his phone number, and that was it. And after we were running out of funds, this is after, I think it's around end of production, I was running out of money on the credit cards. I started an LLC, and I had to meet with lawyers and learn how to raise money, but that was no use because I didn't know anybody that had money, And so people like Ernie's parents invested. There was small investments that came in. And at one point, there was a deadline. And if I didn't hit the minimum at that deadline, all the money goes back, And so I was trying to figure out how to get the money. And there was just no other call. And I remember looking at that piece of paper, and I said, oh, I'll just call him. And so I called him, and he answered. It was the same phone, and he didn't remember me. And I just started talking, and we just connected. And I can really tell that, my narrative reminded him of his narrative. And at the end, he said, how much you need? And the next morning, it was wired right in, and it was right on the deadline. He saved the project, But that was enough just to kind of get that chunk of money so that we can continue, And there was, just down the road, we had all these angels that came through, Joan, who's here, that was the last, we were at the VC Film Fest 2001 for opening night, and this is I was editing at that point. We wrapped in March, right, of 2001, and festival is in May. And so, yeah, so I was starting to run out of money again because I have the film, but I'm editing it. Now we have to go to answer print, mix, and everything. And so I decided to cut a trailer. And the trailer, there wasn't even any dialogue because it wasn't even sunk up yet. Because it took like me and Ernie and Julie and Faith like 4 weeks just to sync up sound and picture. And so I just cut this trailer, and Walt Louis, who's another angel, just came and like taught me how to use the Avid. We printed on the film, and they projected it at the DGA. And everyone's like, oh, great, you know? And I'm walking down there, and I meet Joan, who I'd met at Berkeley years ago. And we connected, and oh, yeah, Jeff, you weren't married yet, but Jeff, her fiance, but it's, yeah. It was great. Yeah, so we sat down at Torrance, and yeah, I remember Jeff was flying into San Francisco, and they just saved the film. I mean, it was, every step of the way. If we didn't get that, there was no way we could have finished the film even in time to submit for Sundance, you know? So I know that a lot of times I share these stories, and MC Hammer is always the one that everyone talks about, but I gotta give Joan and Jeff a lot of credit, you know? Without them, this film would never exist. So, thank you.
So guys, you get into Sundance. You're going to Sundance. It's the most exciting moment ever. What was that experience like? Not only premiering the film there in Park City, and then attending all of these Q&As, you had several screenings, but what was the feedback like? What was that experience like for you as performers to debut a film like this at a place like Sundance, and what part of that experience still stays with you today?
That was the first time I saw my face on a big screen, and I think I freaked out, and I ran into the lobby because I was actually at Sundance doing a children's theater tour. It was their last educational tour for 3 months when we got into Sundance. So I actually got the call while I was at Sundance that we got into Sundance from Justin, and I was like, hold on a second, put down the phone, and I jumped on the bed, never thought I would be that crazy girl jumping on a bed hearing news, but it was pretty crazy. And then I came back for a week and then went right back to Sundance. And that whole experience, I feel so blessed to getting to work with these guys. One, having to get to work with such an incredible, passionate group of artists. These guys are all artists. Each one of these guys up here, they're very amazing artists in their craft. And then on top of things, these guys are just wonderful people, good-hearted guys, and that's why the whole production was so amazing. So everything down to the trip, everything was just such an amazing experience, down to Roger Ebert, down to all that. The support comes when the core group is a good, positive energy group. People are attracted to that, and naturally all these guys are attracted to positive energy.
When we shot this, we had finished shooting, and I had gone to Sundance for the first time the year prior just to see what it was like, and I had some friends who had films there, so it's all new to me. And we were at the Eccles Theater, which usually shows the kind of the main movies, and I was like, this thing is great. It's it's 1,300 people audience, and it's afterwards the actors were there and doing the Q&As, and so you got to pick the brains, and now every screening you go to has a Q&A, but back then it was a real novel thing, and I was like, this is great. And then fast forward to the next year, it's our film there, and I'm sitting there, and my face and Virgil's face are the ones that opened the film, and I was just had my fiance there, and it's just, and she's been there with me the whole way, and it's just a real teary-eye moment, oh my gosh, is this really happening? And now we're up there handling the Q&A, and it was really trippy. And with any project, you have certain things that benchmarks that you hope to hit, and every time we kept hitting him. It was oh my gosh, this is really happening. You hope for the best, and it was just happening every step of the way. It was really great.
Roger, Sung, Aaron?
It was just it was reality. Sundance maybe when we were there was still artistic, interesting films, but it's the ultimate collision of art and commerce. And the cool thing is Justin arranged for us to all share this one cabin, but it's not like we were had tons of money, we were still miles and miles out of town. But the funny thing is, we all find a way to into town, and then you get all these Hollywood ballers that are around. And it was interesting to be in this, like, before you were always on the other side of the fence, and at least at this point you were like, at least on the middle of it. It was kind of cool to watch Justin. We'd all be hanging around together, and he'd have to go to a meeting like at a restaurant, so we'd kind of go over with him. And he'd look in the restaurant, it's like every power player in Hollywood behind the door, then Justin would go in and it would close, and we'd just hang outside in the lobby, you know? And so it was a really unique and interesting time. It was like a sort of a weird rite of passage of being able to see the real big mechanics of how Hollywood worked. And it was just funny, you know, I mean, there was like 30 of us in this house, and I was sleeping on the floor in the living room, and I'd see Justin at like 12 midnight on his phone rolling calls off his like Motorola StarTAC, and I'd fall asleep, and then 5:30 in the morning, he'd be still sitting there at the fireplace, still rolling calls. And I was just like, dude, do you sleep? And he's like, I don't need to sleep. You know? So yeah, it was just an interesting thing. It's you get to really see glimpses of how Hollywood worked when you were an outsider for so long.
Yeah, it was like a summer camp education into, I guess, independent filmmaking, because I was not familiar with the business of show business and indie filmmaking. And so, you know, through Better Luck Tomorrow, I felt like I was able to go on this just amazing educational ride. And it gave you hope. You know, you went after Sundance, you know, you have the players there and people that have Hollywood business cards and all that, and then all of a sudden they're talking to you. You know, one day you're just a guy hustling, trying to, you know, get a part. And then the next day after a screening, you know, people pat you on the shoulder, they're excited. You know, there's a look in their eyes when they feel like they connected with you. They know you to a degree. And that was kind of a cool experience for the first time, where just random people are, you know, coming up to you and going, dude, you're great. You're a great martial artist. I've been watching your work for years. I'm kidding. You know what I'm saying. You know. But yeah. So you know, that was the first taste. And then you go back and then you put all the pieces together and you realize it is a business, and there was money to be spent, and, you know, there was a magic sauce that went onto it too, because there was all the support. We had the Ebert thing that happened, you know, right time, right place, all that. So, and somebody told me at Sundance, if this never happens again, you're probably still in the minority of great experiences in Hollywood. So, yeah.
David Mcgill, who introduced this panel and is one of the lifebloods of this festival, was one of the publicists working on this film that year at Sundance. And I heard a story that he and Annalie Palo went to the local market in Park City and bought up every single blank VHS that the store had so that you could frantically dupe the film to give to, this was before the internet, before like press screeners, to spread the word, to get critics and journalists behind this film. Tell me what that experience was like, the awareness, the grassroots effort that started at Sundance and really continued through your release when you got the entire community behind you.
Yeah, I mean, I think the idea was this idea of community. And this actually goes back to my conversations I would have with Linda Ballet, you know, at VC years before, you know. And I think coming up, it was always interesting because you idealize what a community is, but you see the politics of community. You see the egos of community. And there's positives and negatives. And especially coming up, it's always a little disheartening. And she was great at reminding me that, you know, don't dwell on the negative. Like, you can change things. So I think our idea was that, you know, like, we knew that this is not like a feel-good movie. You know, up to that point, every Asian American film felt like had to be a feel-good movie. That's how you can get funding. It was almost like an unwritten rule, you know. And we just want to feel empowered. For success or failure, it didn't matter. It was just about doing something. And hopefully that, you know, if we can connect we can connect with other people. And if we don't, that's okay. And that's how we were going to build our community. And we were very lucky, like David and Allie, everybody that came on, again, they came up for the right reasons, and that was all about sharing, you know? And when the Ebert thing happened, I remember they're like, we gotta get the word out. And so there was, I think, is it Safeway? Is it Safeway? It was that one market in Park City, right? Is it Safeway?
Safeway.
Albertsons. Is it Albertsons?
Yeah.
Oh. What was great was Fabe and I ran down there, and we were getting tapes too. And Jeff Dow, who was on one of our reps, Big Lebowski's based on him.
The dude.
The dude. And the dude is there with his bathrobe, and he is high as a kite, eating stuff off the produce aisle.
Did he write a check for your VHSs?
No, but it was watching Big Lebowski live. It was amazing. But it was a great time because we were all just in it, and we were gonna do whatever we had to do, and we didn't know if it was the right thing or wrong thing. Nobody had done it, so it was just great. You know, I think even the decision. I think when we got into Sundance, I took a loan. I had to take a loan so I can can rent that cabin so everyone can kind of stay in there. So I still have like great memories of, up at like 5:30 and the sun's about to come up, and I look and everybody's sleeping on the floor and all the sleeping bags and stuff. And it's just kind of that moment that we'll never have again. But I'm so glad we had that. It was just not the cast; it was the crew. I mean, we had an army of people. It felt like I think we had like 70 people in this cabin. But it just felt good. It felt right, and we were all on this journey. It was a very special journey just for us, and we just kept meeting people. And by the time we were going to film festivals, there were just people hanging out. Disco Rich must be here somewhere, right? Like there were just people hanging out with us, and you could actually just feel that like the community was getting bigger and bigger. And to this day, I look back, and that was a lot of what we talked about, and a lot of what we're doing like at Yum Yum F and stuff. It's still off of that conversation I had with Linda way back.
Well, I also think it's tremendous that you, compared to a lot of filmmakers in Hollywood, you've continued to bring up the people that you've worked with in the past and work with them again and bring them onto new films over and over and over again. You've worked with a lot of your Better Luck Tomorrow cast multiple times.
Yep.
Is that like a philosophy that drove you from the start, or has that been a challenging thing to do the more that you work in a studio system?
Well, it's interesting because I think a lot of people talk about diversity and stuff, and it almost feels like people are just putting in people of color just for the sake of diversity. And I grew up in Orange County, and I'm always like very, it's always such a complex thing for me, internally, because I didn't want to play in like some league. I wanted to play in varsity. Like that was my goal, that I wanted to always challenge myself, see where I stand. Even if I fail, I want to know where I am. And the one thing out of Better Luck Tomorrow that was so clear to me was that we had the talent, I think that if we didn't have the talent, I think I wouldn't work with them again, But I was so proud of everybody. That was the one indication to me that, it was actually an issue. Diversity is a very easy thing to say, but it was an issue of opportunity. And so when I was able to get into rooms, that was something that was very uncomfortable, but I felt like I wanted just to bring that up, And I remember on like Annapolis, I brought that up, and it was like just crickets in the room, but somebody had to bring that up in my mind, And then when I did Tokyo Drift, I wanted colorblind casting, which it was unheard of back then, because when you have leads, usually the three big agencies have people, the clients, and they just, they feed them in, and there's no Asian Americans on that list.
They have lists, yeah.
Yeah. And so I said, I want colorblind casting, and I forced it, And now it's like, I don't even have to ask. As soon as I come on project, I'm seeing it, And so I see that there's a progression, But at the same time, I remember watching the auditions, and then a lot of the Asian Americans that came in weren't off book. Because they're not used to having 4 pages of dialogue and stuff. And so it took a little time too to share that with everybody. Go, hey, I've been in this room now. If you're gonna step up, really own it. Don't go in there and try to have hopefully somebody give you a job. Go and take that job, And I can say that now, like I'm seeing that, I mean, I just did a pilot where this guy David Lim just came in. and he was so good. I looked at Sean Ryan, I'm like, let's just write a role for him. And so now, and it's not because he was Asian American, it's just because he was good, And so I think it's always complex. People always want to put it into a very simple discussion, but I think it is about getting in that room. And I don't think any of us want to be working just because of the color of our skin. You want to work and like, you want to, like, I want to be competitive. I want to be the best I can be. And I'm sure that's the case for everybody here. And I think this film, what it did was, I thought, it really gave anybody that gave it a chance to watch a film to see that, oh, the talent is there. Because I remember afterwards, I was getting calls about Harold and Kumar, and they were talking about Parry or John, and like there was all these calls about, oh, the talent is there, But it took a little time, and it's still going to take time. And I still think that it's a little, for me, it's still a whole diversity thing. Could just be a buzzword right now. And I always want to make sure that it's having we have the right discourse. It's about creating opportunity, on both sides, really.
Well, for the cast, we have a question from the Asian American Committee of SAG-AFTRA, which is one of our hosts for this panel. And the question is, what is the impact that Better Luck Tomorrow had on your overall career? And did you feel like you were able to get auditions or get in the door for better roles after this, for less stereotypical roles, or fight to make roles less stereotypical than they are on the page?
I would say, I don't think that I had any direct correlation of saying being part of the film that got me something like an offer or something like that. Like, definitely when I was in the room and doing the audition, the producers would be like, oh man, by the way, I loved you in Better Luck Tomorrow. Like, I had no idea. But then after that was done, it's like, okay, now you gotta sing for your supper. I still had to fight for the role and had to audition. But I think the biggest part that has stayed with me to this day was the kind of the empowerment that being part of this film had me carry on to things. Because before, when you're new and you're sort of the outsider, it's like you always feel like, am I just a fraud? Why am I here? They're gonna figure this out. That I have nothing to contribute. And then with this being sort of validated with the box office dollars and the critical, the reviewers, critically, lauding our performances, and it was like, okay, I have the right to be here. I have something to contribute. And that had helped me out a lot, especially with, I was part of this horror franchise called Hatchet, and it came a couple years after Better Luck Tomorrow, and the role was this guy who was he had a Bayou accent, and he's like, hey, y'all, and try the crawfish yet? And then like when the horror icon starts slashing people, he turns out he's a con artist, and then he breaks down and he has this Asian accent, right? And that was the joke of it. And then I told the director, I said, you know what, I have a real problem with doing the remainder of the film in this accent, because the comedy was because of the accent. I didn't necessarily have an objection doing the accent, but the joke was that, okay, he was this Bayou accent. I said, how about, in keeping in line, when things really get bad, I drop the Asian accent and I just speak the way I normally do. And it's like, you're milking the joke for another beat, but yet you're making this all of a sudden a progressive character now. And I would never have had the guts to say that before Better Luck Tomorrow. And I remember my stunt double, Stephen Ho, he's on Conan O'Brien now. He's always teaching Conan how to do stunts. He was my stunt double, and he'd been working in the industry for years. And he's like, dude, I've never seen anyone do that ever. And I was like, I know. I was like, I've had enough, and so that was has helped me sort of be like, I've got a little bit of edge in terms of what I've gone through with this movie and what I've seen and where I've come from. That that's why I never really bag on younger actors taking on stereotypical roles, because it's like, hey, they're just trying to pay their dues. But it's like, I find it was my mantra was like, I got to take that job from you because you may not be feeling empowered enough to speak up on set about certain things. So. The first couple of years after Better Luck Tomorrow, I was turning down everything because I felt that the role had to be perfect, but that's never going to be the case. It's like, you got to get in there and sort of change things as best you can, being respectful of the material, at the same time, but being say, hey, you know, and most all the time, like 99% of the time, they're just usually comes from a place of ignorance where they're like, oh yeah, you know what, you're right, and they'll work with you, you know, to do that. So that's what it's done for me.
It's changed my life. I mean, at first it gave me a hopelessness, hope, you know, before Better Luck Tomorrow, and that journey, and then validation with there's a community out there, and this whole Asian American thing, because it wasn't tangible. I couldn't touch it. You know, you could see it in bits and places, but does the community actually want your face on screen? Are they going to pay and spend 2 hours with you? And you realize, you know, you travel around with the movie, and it's almost like you're like a traveling circus, or like a band with a message. And our message was, in a way, you know, the hokiness was like, oh, it's Asian power. But then there was, I think it came down to, well, hey, man, it's nice to see our face on screen, and hopefully we can continue, you know. So it gave me, you know, behind the curtain, I said, okay, this is real. It's not just in my head. So maybe it's worth continuing, because nobody wants to be poor. Nobody wants to always feel like you're less and talk about minority, and, you know, it's not enough for us, and it's so tough. Like, who wants to do that? Like, why would I purposely go into a career where they don't want me, or there's no reason for me to be there? But Better Luck Tomorrow showed this community, you know, and it was the beginning of emails and all that grassroots stuff, and those are all great words until you finally experience it and you go, wow, this is actually real. Like, there's some magic and voodoo that happens, and you go town to town, you go to all the APA organizations and universities, and, you know, there's intellectual welcoming, there's sometimes, like, you know, Backstreet Boys, physical welcoming. All of a sudden you're like, you know, you feel like you understand that idea of like fame and celebrity, and then there's responsibility, you know, and so it's changed my life in that. You know, has it gotten me in rooms? Because, you know, I also got to continue and be a part of the whole Better Luck Tomorrow. I mean, the Fast and Furious franchise. You know, I've seen the world. You know, I've met people. I met superstars. I met, you know, assholes and douchebags. You met, you know, great people. You meet people that have been in this business for 50 years, but there's like a, you know, a sincere spirit. And so I've gotten a lot of great teachers, and it's been great. Is it tough? Is it enough? You know, do I want more? Yeah, you know, of course we do. You know, of course it'd be nice to have our Moonlight. It'd be nice to have our Oscar, you know, but I guess that's why we're here. Hopefully, you know, enough talk, and you guys, you know, we're gonna pass the bucket around so you guys can give us some money so we could go do another movie. Yeah. Yeah. So.
I just wanted to take this opportunity to let you guys know we're going to take some questions to wrap up the panel. So just put your hands up if you have one. Right here. Yes.
Hi, I'm Chris. I'm with the APAM committee at SAG-AFTRA. I want to ask for the whole panel, how important was it to be a part of SAG and then the DGA then? And then how important is it now to be a part of SAG-AFTRA and DGA?
Wow, that's a great propaganda SAG question.
Thank you. No agenda.
It was wonderful. SAG is a wonderful institution of protection for the actors. Thank you so much.
I don't think I was in SAG. Yeah, I don't think I was in SAG.
You weren't, yeah. I don't believe you were.
He was dreaming of one day of being in SAG. It's SAG envy.
Me too. Yeah.
Oh, I'm glad the production was. I mean, because when you're starting out, you have, you know, certain productions that go non-union, and you're like, okay, you kind of know what you don't know what's going to happen, right? So it was nice to know that there was because it costs more money to have SAG, but you also have some sort of levels of protection, and you know that there's some sort of level of quality that has to be maintained. So that was kind of nice, seeing like, okay, we've got this awesome script, and like, oh, and you're going SAG too. So that was really comforting in that sense. Like, okay, now like it wasn't, because I mean, sometimes it's the Wild West, with anything, no matter how good the intentions, and sometimes people don't know that, yeah, you need a bathroom, because sometimes, they'll shoot and there's certain things that you just want to get the project, want to get it shot, and it's like you forget certain things, like, oh, every 6 hours, we got to eat, and being part of SAG, had the producers following some of the most basic things. We weren't getting paid a lot. We were still getting the minimum amount, so it wasn't crushing the production in terms of money, but at the same time following certain rules of, of hours worked and being able to do turnaround and not being able to work us all night, and so that we can drive home and not crash and stuff like that. So everything we were treated, it was amazing. So it was great.
Actually,
SAG is great because you could always use SAG as the bad guy. Like when Roger would inappropriately hold me, I would say, SAG, this is against SAG rules. I'm okay with it, but Mr. SAG won't like this.
Roger. Yeah, I went from the BLT shoot to a non-SAG shoot, and I have to say, I went from probably the best shoot I've ever been on to the worst shoot I've ever been on, so I really appreciated SAG when I went into the second shoot, because you were there.
Was that? I was,
oh
yeah,
my God,
I was
we were in
there.
the same
Roger was there.
Roger was, yeah, okay, so basically, long story short, I love SAG. You guys are awesome. Thank you. I appreciate you guys taking care of people, because our bodies are used as our material to work. When we run down and we're tired and no one's there to protect us, no one like you guys are there to protect us, like, we can't produce as good work as we could, so thank you, because it made a difference, like, just the feeling between that set and the other set, right? I mean, I was bringing sandwiches to make food.
Right.
I brought a blow-up couch because there was nowhere for them to sit in the tent. It wasn't even a tent. It was
a tarp.
Long story short, we had mold on our crafty service food. Do you remember that?
I guess we're not naming
remember
names
that?
here.
Anyways,
huh, guys?
no.
But you can look it up on IMDb.
Yeah, we appreciate it.
You can.
We appreciate it a lot. Thank you.
Questions from the audience? Over in the back?
Hey guys, this total like non-business type thing, but yeah, yes, Roger. How was this in terms of relations with your parents and your family when this all came about? And the answer can be anything to that.
I mean, my parents are very kind of not conventional Asian American parents. I mean, we were a working class family. I remember when we moved from Taiwan, we weren't even supposed to be here. We were supposed to go to Paraguay, and somehow this whole scam thing, and we ended up stuck here. And so they had this fish and chips restaurant, and in Orange County, and I think they've always been supportive. I mean, for the longest point in my life, I just wanted to play in the NBA. That was my goal, right? And they're like, okay, So when I decided to go into film, they're like, So I kind of just shifting their expectations, I think. But they were always super supportive. I think they worked so much. They only had like one day off. For 26 years, Thanksgiving was the only day they took off. And I think I barely saw them, but they knew when I liked something, when I was doing something passionate. And when I decided to go into film, they were fully supportive, and it was great. I mean, they had moved out of the house that I grew up in, and I'd asked them not to sell the house for a few months because we were shooting down in Orange County. And I still have the great images of the house I grew up in with no furniture, but these guys just sleeping on the floor because it was just too far to drive back to LA. And so just that kind of support, and even Ernie's parents, they would cook, for the cast, for the crew. We just had some really supportive parents, and it was great. I really think they all they just stepped up. I mean, Roger's dad was buying sell out. They're buying out when the film came out. He was forcing everybody in his work to buy tickets, right? Is that?
He's like, come see my son as a homicidal maniac on the movies. So proud of him.
One thing I love about BLT is it's still one of the only films I can even think of that has Asian American teenage characters drinking, doing drugs, having sex, and committing felonies. It's real special, you guys. It's a real special thing. We did have a really quick question from the internet, and that question is for Justin. What does Arby's and Mountain Dew mean for the production of this film? Did they contribute significantly to either your state of mind? I don't understand that question. It's a deep cut question.
There's an Arby's on. Arby's changed my life a couple of times, and Sung's life actually even. So I'll go. So there was this one time I was trying to get financing, and these guys were like making me like do everything. And I, coming from a working class family, I was like, okay, whatever you need, I'm gonna try to earn it. And for months, they would give me these exercises that were just insane. But I would do it because I wanted their financing. And they were just holding their financing to me for months. And it was like for investment for, I think, $25,000, something like that. But it's a lot of money, and they would make me write essays, so I would write essays. And it was like 3 months later, they met me at this coffee house in Sunset and said, nah, we don't want to invest. And I was so hurt. I remember driving, and I was just so depressed. There was an Arby's on Sunset, it's still there. And there was a payphone outside. So I stopped, and I had a sandwich, and I was like, screw it, and I called them, and they didn't pick up, and on the answer machine, I was, F this, F that, you guys are gonna miss out. It was all conviction and passion, and I drove from there back to my place in Beverlywood, and by then, they left a message saying, oh, we're back in, we'll invest. And it was the biggest lesson for me is that you set the standard. You don't let other people set the standard, and that really taught me a lot about be empowered, be proud of your work. It's such a dance, and I think when I came up, it was always about I can earn it. And I remember working with Quentin Lee on Shopping for Fangs. He was just he came from a pretty wealthy family, and his thing was I work hard, I deserve it. And that's the biggest thing I learned from Quentin is that be proud of your work, and how you calibrate and how you hold the quality, that's up to you, The second time Arby came up was I was with Alice and Sung. We were driving up to San Francisco for this parade. And this is after Tokyo Drift when I said, I'm going back to India World. I'm not doing any more fast. No more. And I actually told the studio, I said, nah, I'm not doing any more. And we stopped at Arby's. And I swear, I don't eat Arby's that much, guys. It just, somehow we ended up at Arby's off the 5. And Sung walks in, and all these Latino kids just saw him and just boom, they were like, Han, and they're jumping up and down, taking pictures. It was so amazing. And then we had our lunch, and we were driving back onto the freeway. And I said, oh man, it's too bad, Han is dead. And then, and Sung's like, does he have to be dead? And I was like, oh, and it honestly happened on the 5. And I called Kirschenbaum at Universal. I'm like, I'm back in, let's do it. And boom. Because it had gone down. I think they were starting to, I had told them no, I think they were starting to look at maybe bringing out the directors. So so Arby's.
That's the most amazing story I've ever heard. Right in the back, Phil.
In the last 15 years, several of you have become parents, and I'm wondering when will you let them see see Better Luck Tomorrow?
Alice was saying at least 30. At least 30.
I think up until today, I think my kids thought I was a dentist. It's not a joke. 30, at least 30. 18.
Yeah, 18. I've actually my oldest one, who's 12 now. I was asking my wife. I'm like, for Thursday's premiere, I'm like, oh, it'd be really cool to show up on the carpet with her, and But I'm like, no, I can't do that. So yeah, definitely, I'm excited for her to see, because this whole time she's always heard it ever since she's been alive. The poster's up in my office. So she has seen it and heard people talk about it, but it'd be nice to share it with her.
When we walked in, my oldest daughter saw the poster. I was like, oh, hey, come look at this poster. And then I realized I'm holding a gun in it. And I was like, oh, don't look at it. She goes, oh, Dad, is that you with the gun? I'm like, oh, yeah. It's just a play to cops and robbers.
Yeah, we're gonna have to edit a little bit before my son sees it. So, hi, there he is. He's waving at me. Hi, Pooh.
Well, I don't have kids, but if I did, I would show them. Then I would show them a picture of you and show them that illegal shirt to show how art can be misused by people like you who make money off of our art, off our backs. I've yet to see a penny from that shirt to show the corrupt elements of capitalism.
I had to buy this one.
Who made those shirts?
Yeah, how do I get one?
Who's making money off of those things?
Where's Stephanie on the shirt? And Takashi. I want a Stephanie and Takashi shirt. Can someone make one? Sorry, I lost my voice.
It's funny you should ask, because if you look at what Parry's about to do.
I didn't want to get anyone left out, so.
That's cute.
Wow.
He's prepared.
Stephanie.
What? Oh. Oh, Parry.
Oh, yes, it's directed by.
Oh,
Now it's complete.
Take it off.
All right, we have time for a couple more questions right over here. And we'll have the microphone come right to you.
Hi, this question is for Justin. Can you talk about the interpersonal skills you use when working with high caliber actors such as Dwayne Johnson and Vin Diesel, and if you had any hardships with
And Sung Kang.
personalities?
These are hella high caliber actors
Of
over here.
course. I was just alluding to some kind of beef between the two of them, which probably didn't happen on your set, but if you have any stories about any interpersonal skills that you have to utilize to manage the actors.
Oh, look, everyone I worked with, I love, and everybody comes into the game differently, and it's my job to create a set where we're all hopefully, I can get the best out of everybody and they get the best out of me. And Hollywood and filmmaking is the one arena where it could be anybody, any background. Some people are in it and they're great actors. Some people aren't great actors, but they're like charismatic. And so it's my job to figure out how to get the best out of them, And it's not for me to judge, but I do love trying to get to know everybody. I mean, I think when we were talking about the auditions for this film, what was really interesting, hearing Parry talk about Ben and stuff, was that I remember he came in like 3 or 4 times, and I don't know, we just kept having Parry come back in, but we got to know him so well by the 4th or 5th audition, and that's when we're like, that's Ben. And you don't get that a lot of times in the process, and that's something I really enjoy. I mean,
So he sort of wore you down then, huh?
Yeah. No, but I think
cool.
it's part of, I think people talk about it and it's like, you show up on set and I like my set to be good energy, and I like competition, but I also want it to be healthy competition, and whether it's doing an indie or a big budget film, I've always managed it exactly the same way. And sometimes you have to butt some heads, sometimes you have to change the culture, sometimes you have to do things, but that's my job. I think that ultimately whatever we do, good or bad, mistakes, whatever, it's on that screen and it's going to live on there forever, and I'm accountable for that, and I want to be accountable for that. So I'm not giving you any dirt on the Dwayne and Vin thing.
You guys just played Game of Horse to make peace on set, right? Over here? By the way, what was the pager budget on Better Luck Tomorrow? It was very rich in pagers.
It was interesting because as we were writing it, the cell phones started coming in, right? Like that was it 2000? That's when the cell phone started happening. And so when we were first writing it, it was all pagers and and cell phone. And payphones. And then as we were doing rewrites, the cell phone started creeping in.
Hi guys, I don't know if you'll remember me. The last time, it's Barb from the Vancouver Asian Film Festival. Last time you came up to Vancouver, I was like 7 months pregnant and you guys weren't married yet. So it's nice to see you all. But my question is, there's a lot of money coming from China and into Hollywood, and there's all these discussions and courting. How do you see that affecting, or how can Asian Americans, Asian Canadians sort of get in that conversation and maybe use that to help further the cause of what we've all been sort of fighting for?
Yeah, I mean, it's look, China's a whole other issue, you know? I mean, I remember when we got picked up, with any film that gets North America distribution, usually it just clicks in and you get distribution for around the world. And Asia was the one market that, like, when we got picked up by Paramount MTV Films, they were like, no, we don't want this film. Like, we want white people, you know? We couldn't get into Asia with this film. There are instances where I would have to, I'm not gonna name names, but Sung was, I don't know if I should talk. It was this one project and Sung was up for a lead. And it was his. I talked to the producer, I talked to the stars, it was his. And I'm not gonna drop my son's here. But anyway, this guy comes in and says, well, you should cast this guy out of China because he'll be worth $50 million in your gross. And I remember talking to a producer, and they ended up going with that guy. And I said, how can you do that? Do you know for a fact? And the producer said, I don't know for a fact, but what if it's true? So an Asian actor came, and just because of that, took a role that Sung had. And these are the fights that we get into, you know, and it's not my film, but like I feel like I can get in that room, I can pick up the phone now, and I can have those conversations, you know? And China is all about commerce. It's all about commerce, you know? I think Asian Americans, I think hopefully the community it keeps evolving, and it's about creating opportunities. It really is. If you're looking for China for any help, you're not gonna get any help. You know, I think, but we shouldn't have to ask for that, you know? Like, we're Americans, we're here, we're talented, let's go and really create the opportunities.
You won't get help, but you'll get the Great Wall. Did we have one last?
Anyway, there's the idea of censorship. So you're talking about Better Luck Tomorrow, they wanted to see white people. But was it also maybe about they didn't want to see Asian men acting, doing drugs, you know, doing all that?
No, it's not. Look, since then I've gone to China. I've sat down with like the heads of China states and stuff. And I get them, and I actually respect what they're about. You know, it's for them, it's really about commerce. Like you talk about ethnic politics, they're like, what are you talking about? You know, like to them, that doesn't mean anything to them. You know, censorship, that's a whole other issue. So this was not that. Like we didn't even get to that. I wish we would have that conversation. This was not that. China was a different market in 2002, 2003. So it's not about that. I think China, again, it's a whole other issue. We can spend a whole other 3 hours just talking about China. And, you know, I can say that. I've been in rooms with people. I've had meetings. And it's a whole thing. Hollywood is still having that relationship with China. And it's a very different way of doing business. But Hollywood's always had suitors from, whether it's the Germans or Italians or the Japanese. Like, it's very alluring. You know, like every few years, somebody else is going to come in. And so I think right now with China, it is about really trying to create the right relationships. But it's actually also very simple, you know? If you can make a movie that make a ton of money, they're gonna wanna be in. That's simple as that, you know?
All right, we're out of time, guys. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you, Justin Lin, Sung Kang, Roger Fan, Parry Shen, Karin Cheung, and Takahashi.